Why hello and welcome back to my library. Nigel and I are here to talk again about writing subjects because I haven't been talking as much about that in a while. I kind of feel like I've exhausted many of the subjects that I feel like I can speak with any authority on, but one of my patrons did ask a question, and they are at a tier on my Patreon where they can make suggestions for videos for me to do. And I was like, well, you know what? I'll give it my best. I'll try my best to answer it. I'm gonna go get, actually, my laptop and read you their actual question about what they wanted me to talk about, and then I'm gonna do my best to talk about it. Do my best, because, as I often mention, I am not the god of writing. I am just a writer with a lot of experience, not actually, like, a perfect, flawless writer, because none of us are. But obviously, it's only my best. So definitely look other places for what other people are saying and how they do it too, until you find the way that works best for you. Okay? So this was her exact question here. I'm reading it. I've been working on a book for a while, and it would be great if you could give me some advice on weaving clues into my story. There's a mystery in one of my POVs that affects the others, and I'm worried I might make things either too subtle or too obvious. And if there's a good line to walk in subverting readers' expectations versus them feeling cheated with not enough setup. That's a really tough line to walk. Yeah, it can be pretty daunting, trying to figure out how much to reveal and how much not to reveal and all of that. So I took a few notes and we're gonna give it our best. First of all, best of luck to you, Anna, with your book. Patron's name is Anna. I hope it's going well. Now, the first thing that you should know about me is that I'm a pantser, and I don't know, Anna, how you are working on your book, if you are plotting it, if you are pantsing it, but some of my advice might just flat out not work for you if you're plotting it versus how I do it. So obviously take that into account. But as a pantser, this is how I do it, or how I try to do it. And because I'm a pantser, it just kind of happens, which makes it very difficult to try to give somebody else advice about it. Inadvertently now, because I've been writing a very, very long time, I've learned how I leave myself clues about characters and stuff like that for later in the writing. I foreshadow instinctively these days, which is really kind of odd, because like later in the story I'll be writing along and I'll be like, that's why I said that at the beginning. Some subconscious part of me knew that I needed it later, even though I didn't even really know how I was going to need it later. So a lot of times if I have something like this, with maybe one character keeping something from another character, I will automatically pop in those little clues. However, this doesn't happen all the time, and sometimes I do need to go back in and add them. But I guess my advice would be there with that, allow yourself to write some things that maybe don't make sense right now and see if they make sense later, because your brain might just be going, we're going to need this later, I'm going to put this in. And if they don't end up being needed later, you can just delete them. But, you know, how much or how little, how do we know what to lead? If we figured out how we want to put it in there, either pantsing or plotting, how much and when and what? And that's a very difficult part. It depends a little bit on your POVs, and are you dealing with an unreliable narrator? And now this is a personal thing for me. Again, everything in this video I'm going to keep telling you, like, this is just my advice, not everyone's advice. For me, an unreliable narrator is only good if you can figure out that they're unreliable. So you don't know exactly what they're omitting or lying about, but you know there's something. I read a book a while ago. I didn't particularly like the book, but it had an unreliable narrator, and I thought it was done well because I could tell that there was something she was hiding from me, the reader. There's something she was omitting. A lot of times when people do an unreliable narrator and they'll be in that character's head, that character will flat out lie to the reader, and so that later you can have a big reveal and be like, oh, I lied to you, reader, when I told you this thing was happening, actually that thing was happening. And that annoys the crap out of me. I prefer an unreliable narrator who omits, who notably or not so noticeably leaves something out where you can go, wait a minute here. This character had anxiety about something that we didn't know why she had anxiety about it. And I was like, oh, okay, something's going on here. It can be as simple as that, where the character is just giving signs that there might be something more, but they're not telling you what. But of course, a really key thing is making sure that your characters do not act out of character in order to not give away clues. Does that make any sense? Like, say you are trying to really hide this clue from your reader, and to do that, you need a character who has previously always acted one way to suddenly act another way, just to hide that clue from your reader. That's gonna mess everything up. Your reader's gonna be like, why is that character who was always kind suddenly mean? Now, don't get me wrong, a character can act out of character as a hint to the reader, but if you're trying to do it in reverse and having a character act out of character, how many times can I say character before it loses its meaning? If you're having a character act out of character to try to trick the reader into thinking that they're not doing something, then it's not gonna work. Does that make any sense? Gosh, I hope it does, because it's just starting to sound like gobbledygook. Make sure that everything your characters do makes sense for them. Don't just pull out random things because the story or plot needs it because you're trying to hide some twist. Also make sure that other characters don't miss clues that they would normally notice. I hate it when in a story a smart person is all of a sudden really dumb because they need to not notice a clue that they would totally notice. One thing I picked up that I really liked when I was looking at other people's videos about this, and I'm going to read you the note that I took. Remember the shadow in foreshadowing. It should form the shape of what the reader can expect without giving away the details. Nigel, you better not pee on those blankets. Because usually I keep this chair covered to try to keep some of the cat hair off, and I put the blanket over there on the floor. And I don't trust him. What was I talking about? Ah, yes, the shadow in foreshadowing. Which kind of brings me to a subject that I think I talk about further down on the page, is that it's okay for your reader to notice things. A lot of authors are pretty obsessed with like hiding something from their readers so their twist is a really big surprise. But honestly, you should have a few clues in there. You should have some foreshadowing. Like we just talked about, it's a shadow. It shows the reader that something is going to happen down the line, but they can't quite make out what. And so they can have fun guessing and speculating and wondering if they're going to be right. And many people feel happy when they find out that they guessed it correctly. Some people are disappointed when they find out they guessed it correctly, but many readers feel clever if they guessed your twist correctly. So that's okay if your reader picks up on it. It's okay to leave little clues in there that your reader might pick up on. I would much rather do that than have no clues whatsoever and have them have like an unjustified surprise at the end. Remember Alfred Hitchcock. If there's a bomb under the table and the reader knows it, that's stressful. But if there's a bomb under the table and the characters also know it, then that's really stressful. You know how we just talked about how people shouldn't act out of character for the sake of the secret? However, we are going to talk about the flip side of that, whereas a character may be acting out of character if they do have a secret. So let's make up two characters because I'm tired of saying the word character. Anna and Tom. Anna knows Tom pretty well, but Tom has a secret, and sometimes when Tom is dealing with his secret, he acts differently, and Anna could pick that up because she is a good friend. Now, if Anna didn't know Tom very well, she might not pick that up. So it's not just for the readers, but also for your other characters. Having Anna, who is previously very smart, not realize that Tom is maybe up to something might seem out of character for her if she was previously observant and knew Tom pretty well. So really, the key to a lot of this is knowing your characters very well. I will always say that. Like, whenever people come to me for writing advice, my usual advice is get to know your characters really well. Get into their heads and know how they would react in any given situation. One thing I like to do with a character is take them shopping. Like, it's just a thought exercise, I don't even write it down, but in my head I go, do I know how my character would behave in a situation that is completely outside any situation that they would encounter in their real life? So I will put my character in a modern day grocery store and see what they buy, how they interact, how they are, just to see if I have a good handle on them as a character. So just as like a thought experiment, I encourage you to take your character and mentally put them in a situation that they would never be in, and if you know exactly how they would react, then you probably know your character pretty well. And to bring it all the way back around to the point I was just making, they might act differently if they're hiding a secret, and some of their friends or enemies might notice. One thing I had wanted to talk about, which I didn't cover in the video, is a little bit that I did in my book, The Wolf and the Hawk, Go read it if you're interested. In that, the character of Xander behaves a certain way due to something that he is keeping to himself. And the character of Ryoni does not know him very well. So she can tell that he's like shutting her out, but she doesn't know him well enough to know why. And I do leave hints in there that I think the reader could figure out before it is revealed, but that is also like an example of where I did it, if you wanted to look at how I did it, with a character who clearly has something else going on, but the reader and the main character Ryoni don't get to find it out for a little while. Also remember, if you are working with, say, a trope, the more well-known the trope is, the fewer clues you need to leave for your reader. So say if you're writing a fantasy book and you're dealing with the long-lost princess trope. People are very familiar with that trope in fantasy, so you would need to leave very few clues that that was what was going to be going on. You should still leave some, but you don't need to shove them in your reader's face because readers are ready for something like that to be happening, and so with very few clues, they can figure it out. If you are doing something that is not expected in your genre or not a common trope, then you may need to leave more clues for your readers to figure it out. Oh good. Good news, everyone. Nigel is lying down on the blankets, not peeing on them. Happiness. Finally, my last note is remember your character's goals in hiding what they are hiding. This comes back to knowing your characters really well. If they are hiding something from, say if Tom is hiding something from Anna, there better be a good in-character reason that he is hiding it from Anna. If you're struggling to find reasons why he would continue to keep that secret from Anna, think it's time to reveal the secret. You may have to give up on some twist if it makes more sense for the characters to know about it. I would much rather have it be, personally, be realistic and characters communicating in a realistic way than just keep hanging on to this twist that we have to get. We have to have this twist. So make sure that if Tom is keeping a secret from Anna, it makes sense for Tom to continue keeping the secret from Anna. And we as the reader should be able to see why, when it's finally revealed, he kept it, and it shouldn't be a groaner like, oh man, what a dumb misunderstanding. That should never have happened. I guess that is one thing to watch out for too, the pitfalls of the needless misunderstanding. People use that trope a lot. Some people hate it more than others, but if it's overused, it's a supremely hateable trope. And the key to avoiding it is to have characters communicate when they should communicate. And you just have to deal with it as a writer. Like, you gotta have the skills to pay the bills. If the key to your book working is characters not communicating when they would communicate, I think maybe you might need to rework your book a little bit. But hey, these have all just been my opinions, as I keep reiterating. This advice, some, all of it, might work for you or not at all for you. I hope at least some of this was helpful to Anna and maybe answered your question, or at least helped brainstorm ways to answer your question. Feel free to continue to make suggestions to me over on my Patreon. If you would like to make a suggestion for a video that I should do, you can hop on over to my Patreon, and I believe the $10 tier, you can boss me around, so go check it out. But at that tier, you will also get access to exclusive content not seen here on the regular channel, as well as a hand-drawn postcard every 3 months. Everybody loves the hand-drawn postcard, so thank you so much for your question, Anna. If you would like to read my book, The Wolf and the Hawk, it is a fantasy romance available now on Amazon in paperback, ebook, and audiobook, so you can go check it out. If you like romance with a plot, so you like a little kissin' and you like a little killin', you might like The Wolf and the Hawk. Thank you so much for watching. I have other writing advice here on this channel, so feel free to wander around. It's all in a playlist for you. I put out new videos at least twice a week. All the links to my social media are in the doobly-doo for ease of your clicking, and I will see all of you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye!
Oh, hello! What brings you here to the end of the video? Is it patrons? I bet it's patrons. Patrons like Very Bad Books, Anna, Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Artemis, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Irene, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Sarah. Why, I can't think of a better reason that you would come to the end of this video. My patrons are awesome. Me and my shadow strolling down the avenue. Me and my Not a soul can bust this team in two. We stick together like glue.